My parents sold the 5-star luxury resort stay I gifted them for their anniversary. The night before the trip, my mother laughed. I sold the voucher, as if we'd ever go with you. My sister chuckled. Thanks for the extra cash. I left without a word. Days later they came back, panicked, but IT was too late. From the top floor of a Manhattan high-rise, the hustle and bustle of the city appeared distant and small through the large glass windows. Jennifer Monroe looked up from the blueprints spread across her desk and sighed deeply. As the CEO of Monroe Properties, a rapidly growing real estate developer in New York, she lived each day in a whirlwind of activity. Outside the window, the evening light filtered between the skyscrapers, bathing her office in a golden glow. The light illuminated her golden-tinged hair, highlighting her as though she were a symbol of success. Jennifer, there's a call from Mr. Brown, her assistant Lisa said gently, poking her head through the door. Jennifer nodded slightly and picked up her cell phone. It was the final adjustment for a major project involving resort development in Florida. Yes, Mr. Brown, I've reviewed the documents. I understand all the special arrangements for my parents, she said. After ending the call, she took an old photograph from her desk drawer. It showed young Jennifer with her parents and baby April. Taken in front of a small apartment in Queens, the photo contained memories of a time when they were poor but happy. When Jennifer was 10 years old, her father Thomas injured his back in a factory accident and lost his steady income. Her mother Martha worked 2 jobs, desperate to support the family. Young Jennifer started working part-time early on to help with expenses, balancing studies and work. It was during this time that a strong determination grew within her. Someday I want to make life easier for my family. Jennifer obtained a scholarship to attend a prestigious university's real estate program, and immediately made her mark after graduation. Her sharp insight and persistent negotiation skills became renowned in the industry, and at 29, she established her own company. In 7 years, she had grown Monroe Properties into a significant presence in New York's real estate industry. However, as her success grew, so did the gap between her and her family. Why do you work so hard? Do you want to become someone different from us? These were the words Martha spoke at the celebration of Jennifer's first big success. To Martha, her daughter's success seemed to reflect her own failures. Her father Thomas continued to work as a small-time repairman. He always took pride in making his own living. But behind this was a stubbornness that prevented him from accepting his daughter's help. And her sister April had dropped out of college and drifted between various part-time jobs, still living with their parents. While envying her sister's success, she had given up trying, saying she was just an ordinary person. Though they appeared to be a harmonious family on the surface, in reality, there was a whirlpool of complex emotions surrounding Jennifer. Jealousy, pride, and the loneliness of not being understood. Lisa, you can go home for today, Jennifer told her assistant, then picked up a red envelope from her desk. It contained a 1-week stay at the finest suite at Emerald Bay, which she had prepared as a gift for her parents' 40th wedding anniversary. But this was not just a luxury vacation gift. It was the first step in Jennifer's meticulous plan to secure her parents and April's future. Emerald Bay Resort was a luxury complex CO developed by her company, with plans to build a high-end senior residence facility in care facility. Also enclosed were details of an educational trust fund planned for her sister April. Everything was part of her long-nurtured safety net for family project. Jennifer clutched the envelope to her chest. She had succeeded to ensure her parents and sister would never experience the hardships of her childhood again. She planned to share this plan at tomorrow's dinner. I wonder if they'll understand this time, Jennifer murmured as she left the office, filled with both hope and anxiety for tomorrow. On her way to her parents' house, Jennifer recalled the words she had rehearsed many times in the car. Tonight was supposed to be special. The red envelope contained all her love and gratitude for her parents. She parked her car in a quiet residential area in Queens and took a deep breath. Her parents' house was a small 2-story home, which her father Thomas had always refused when she offered to pay for repairs. The old porch light still flickered just as it had in the past. When she opened the door, laughter could be heard from the living room. As Jennifer stepped into the living room, she saw her parents and sister April chatting animatedly around something. The 3 of them noticed Jennifer and suddenly seemed to suppress their laughter. "Oh, Jenny, you're here." Martha stood up to greet her daughter. "I thought you'd be late. You always seem so busy." There was a hint of sarcasm in those words. Jennifer tried to ignore it and held out the bottle of wine she had brought. "It's your favorite Chardonnay, the one Dad likes." Thomas just nodded silently. When Jennifer's gaze turned to the piece of paper on the table, April quickly hid it in her pocket. "What were you looking at?" Jennifer asked. "Nothing at all," Martha answered, heading toward the kitchen. "Dinner is ready. Let's sit down." The table was set with her mother's specialty dishes. Jennifer tried to find a way to bring up the resort while searching for a conversation starter. "By the way, are you free next month? I have a special plan." "What is it? More of your business talk?" Martha said, picking up her wine glass. No, something more personal. Jennifer was about to reach for the red envelope when she was interrupted by Thomas's cold gaze. Jenny, you don't need to do anything special for us. We're satisfied with our current life. April chuckled sarcastically as she put a potato in her mouth. My sister always has to be dramatic. The conversation gradually shifted to other topics. Martha gossiped about the neighbors, Thomas talked about sports, and April discussed her recent dates. Jennifer tried several times to bring the conversation back, but her family seemed to skillfully avoid it. When apple pie was served for dessert, Jennifer determinedly took out the red envelope. This is to celebrate your 40th wedding anniversary. I've prepared a special gift. Martha and Thomas exchanged confused glances. April suddenly showed interest and leaned forward. Open it. Jennifer offered the envelope. Martha took out the voucher and documents from the envelope and quickly browsed through them. Thomas peered at them too. Surprise spread across their faces, but it wasn't the joy Jennifer had expected. A resort in Florida? Martha frowned. It's fancy, but it's Emerald Bay, one of the most luxurious resorts in Florida. It's opening next month. This includes a one-week stay and special arrangements, Jennifer explained enthusiastically. Silence followed. There was an invisible but definite wall between Jennifer's enthusiasm and her family's cool response. Suddenly, Martha began to giggle. It was the laugh Jennifer knew well, the one when she was hiding a secret. Jenny, actually, Martha said, not even trying to suppress her laughter. We already sold that voucher. The blood drained from Jennifer's face. What did you say? That's right, Martha shrugged. Last week, your assistant called to say a special mail would arrive. As soon as it came, we sold it. Got a good price too. But why? Jennifer's voice trembled. Thomas cleared his throat. To be honest, a vacation with you would be constrained. We have our own lives. April reached for her mother's wine glass, took a sip, and added, It made for a nice bit of pocket money, thanks. The three of them were laughing. Martha's eyes had a triumphant gleam. Thomas seemed relaxed as he settled deeper into his chair. April pulled out her smartphone and began checking some messages. Jennifer stood frozen. In her mind, she could see all her plans crumbling. The lifetime resort membership, priority access to the luxury senior facility, April's educational trust fund, all of it had disappeared along with that voucher. Did you read the enclosed documents? Jennifer asked hopefully. There were some legal papers, but they looked complicated, so I didn't read them, Martha answered indifferently. The buyer said he didn't want those things anyway. Jennifer quietly stood up. Words were no longer necessary. She took her car keys from her wallet and silently walked toward the entrance. Oh, are you leaving already? Martha's voice had a mix of confusion. What about dessert? Jennifer didn't look back. She opened the door and took a deep breath of the cold night air. Until she got into her car and started the engine, she suppressed her emotions. About 10 minutes away from her parents' house, the tears finally flowed. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel, and her vision blurred. She pulled the car over to the side of the road and cried quietly for a long time. Her phone rang. It was from her mother. Jennifer ignored the call and instead sent a short message to her assistant Lisa. Please cancel all family plans for the Emerald Bay project. I'll explain the details tomorrow. Jennifer took a deep breath and wiped away her tears. She looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Deep down, she knew this moment would be a turning point in her long, strained relationship with her family. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of the office, casting a golden glow on the documents on her desk. Jennifer, with a face that showed she hadn't slept all night, had been immersed in work since early morning. She drank cup after cup of coffee, trying to distract herself from last night's events by focusing on the revised plans for the Emerald Bay project. Good morning, Ms. Monroe. Lisa knocked and entered, concern visible on her face. Seeing the dark circles under Jennifer's eyes, she silently offered a fresh cup of coffee. Can you tell me more about the schedule changes? Lisa asked cautiously. Canceling the family plan for Emerald Bay so suddenly. It's all my responsibility, Jennifer answered with a tired voice. Can you set up a meeting with Mr. Brown today? I need to explain everything to him. As soon as Lisa left the room, the phone rang. Jennifer tensed slightly as she saw the display. It was the international development partner from Florida. Jennifer Monroe speaking. Miss Monroe, it's Brown. A calm but authoritative voice echoed from the other end. I'm calling about the special membership for Emerald Bay. All the papers for your parents are ready. The special pre-opening tour is also prepared. Jennifer closed her eyes and paused for a moment. Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, but there's been a change to that plan. She tried to maintain a professional tone. The special membership for my parents is canceled. The same goes for the priority access to the adjacent senior facility. A confused silence formed on the other end of the phone. Is there a problem? Brown's voice contained obvious surprise. The papers have already gone through the legal department. It's a personal matter. It won't affect the project itself, Jennifer responded firmly. My lawyer will contact you about the formal procedures. After ending the call, Jennifer placed the phone down and sighed deeply. She pressed the intercom. Lisa, please call Attorney Gordon immediately. An hour later, Jennifer's legal counsel, Mark Gordon, was sitting in her office. Behind his glasses, his sharp eyes observed Jennifer's tired expression. You want to cancel everything? He asked incredulously. The lifetime membership for your father and mother, priority access to the future luxury care facility, the gift of a villa, these are things you've been preparing for years. That's not all, Jennifer answered, still gazing out the window. I'm also canceling the educational trust fund for April. Mark frowned. Jennifer, may I ask what happened? Jennifer briefly explained the events of the previous night. Her voice was flat, suppressing emotion, but Mark could sense the depth of her wounds. Legally, there's no problem, Mark said, closing the documents. Since the papers haven't been officially delivered, everything can be cancelled. However, he paused. However what? Just my personal opinion, but don't make decisions out of anger. It's not too late to decide after you've calmed down. Jennifer smiled faintly. This isn't a decision made from anger, Mark. I'm just accepting reality. My family doesn't need my help. In fact, they don't even want it. Mark stood up without saying anything more. Having worked with Jennifer for many years, he knew the firmness of her decisions. I'll prepare the necessary documents today. After Mark left, Jennifer returned to her desk and began reviewing documents for a new project. But her thoughts kept returning to last night's events, her parents' indifferent attitude, her sister's flippant laughter, and her own feeling of powerlessness. Suddenly, the office door burst open. Lisa rushed in with a panicked expression. Miss Monroe, I'm sorry, she was breathless. Important information has come in about the person who bought your parents' voucher. Jennifer looked up. What happened? The buyer, a Mr. Frank Diaz, has been involved in multiple fraud cases. Lisa handed over a tablet. He's known as a social engineering expert who tricks seniors into revealing personal information. Jennifer stared at the screen. It displayed a criminal record alongside a photo of the ex-convict. How did you get this information? We were tracking the voucher as per your instructions. The security team found it being resold on an online marketplace and tracked the buyer, Lisa continued. Even worse, he may have already started fraudulent transactions using your parents' personal information. Jennifer jumped from her chair. For a moment she was about to call her parents to warn them but stopped herself. She was torn between her deeply hurt feelings and a sense of responsibility to protect her family. Ms. Monroe? Lisa asked worriedly. Should we notify the police? Jennifer massaged her forehead as if to organize her thoughts. No, not yet. Let's gather more information. Keep monitoring this Diaz person's movements. But your parents? Let's wait a while before contacting them, Jennifer decided. I need some distance right now. Lisa nodded anxiously but didn't question Jennifer's judgment. After her assistant left the room, Jennifer stared out the window again. The city's noise continued as before, but a new determination was sprouting in her heart. Family Support Fund, she whispered softly. She opened her computer and began creating a new document. The title was Monroe Family Support Foundation. She quickly started writing plans for establishing a nonprofit organization to support people struggling with family relationships, using her own experience. Let's turn my pain into someone else's hope. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, and her heart felt a little lighter than yesterday. Outside the window, the sun of a new day shone powerfully. Just then, her cell phone rang again. It was a call from her mother. Jennifer stared at the persistently ringing phone for a long time. Then, she quietly rejected the call and returned to work. When the clock struck 3 in the afternoon, Lisa entered the room again. Ms. Monroe, latest report from security, she said in a lowered voice. Suspect Diaz has already opened multiple credit cards in your parents' names. The scale of the fraud might be larger than expected. Jennifer inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly. In her heart, disappointment and worry mingled. I understand, she answered quietly. Organize the information. I'll make a decision by tomorrow. Lisa gently nodded, understanding Jennifer's conflict, and quietly left the room. The New York morning began with a clear blue sky. Jennifer had been focused on a video conference with her Florida development partners since early morning. The final adjustments for Emerald Bay were reaching a crucial stage. Next week works fine for the Miami on-site inspection, Jennifer told the business partners on the monitor. I'll also send the revised plan for the family-oriented program today. After the meeting, she checked her schedule. In the afternoon, she had a meeting planned for launching a charitable enterprise. Since the incident with her family, she had been passionately working on the concept of the Monroe Family Support Foundation. It was planned to support people with difficult family relationships, especially serving as a resource center for adult children with elderly parents. Ms. Monroe, Lisa called over the intercom. There was obvious tension in her voice. Yes, Lisa, you have visitors. Your mother, father, and sister. Jennifer froze. It was unprecedented in recent years for her parents and sister to come here. Tell them I'm scheduled to leave for Miami this afternoon, she replied, trying to appear calm. I told them, but they say it's very urgent, Lisa's voice lowered. They seem quite distressed. Jennifer closed her eyes and took a deep breath. All right. Show them to the conference room. I'll be there in 10 minutes. She prepared herself mentally while tidying up the documents on her desk. Checking her appearance in the mirror, she tried to compose a professional expression. She still felt anger and disappointment toward her parents, but her concern about the fraud hadn't disappeared either. 10 minutes later, she opened the conference room door. Martha, Thomas, and April were sitting at the table with tense expressions. Martha's eyes were red and swollen, clearly showing she had been crying. Deep fatigue was etched on Thomas's face, and his usual stubborn attitude had receded. April nervously fiddled with her smartphone, avoiding looking at her sister. What's wrong? Jennifer asked calmly. Martha tried to stand up, but her legs trembled and she sat back down. Jennifer, we need your help, her voice was shaking. We're in serious trouble. Thomas cleared his throat. We were tricked by a con artist, the man who bought that voucher. April looked up. Fear flickered in her eyes. Seems like all our personal information was stolen. Credit cards have been created without our knowledge, and debts too. Have you contacted the police? Jennifer asked, controlling her emotions. We went yesterday, but they said not to expect much, Martha tearfully said. The police said they couldn't believe we made such expensive purchases. But it wasn't us. The guy was a professional con artist, Thomas's voice mixed with anger and shame. We were easily fooled. That's not all. Martha took out a newspaper clipping from her handbag with trembling hands. Look at this. It was an advertisement for Emerald Bay. Under the headline, Priority Rights to Luxury Senior Residences, there were photos of luxurious facilities. Is this what you were trying to give us as a present? Tears welled up in Martha's eyes. Jennifer took the advertisement and stared at it silently. Nothing could be read from her expression. Mom has been crying all night after seeing that, April said softly. We finally realized what we'd done. Jenny, Thomas called out in an unusually weak voice. I understand now what you were thinking, but is it too late? Jennifer slowly sat down. She looked at each of their faces in turn. Until last week she had been longing for this moment to come, the day her family would understand and appreciate her love and care. But now, her heart was filled with complex emotions. Yes, it is too late, she finally spoke. The voucher you sold wasn't just for a vacation. She took out a set of documents from the desk drawer. These are copies of the documents that were attached to that voucher, she began explaining calmly. Lifetime membership to Emerald Bay, priority access to the luxury senior residence facility to be built in the future, and a gift deed for a villa for Dad and Mom. Martha and Thomas gasped. Furthermore, Jennifer turned to April. It included documents establishing an educational trust fund for you, so you could return to college whenever you wanted, or start a new career. April's hands left her smartphone and covered her trembling lips. Did we ruin everything? Martha's voice was hoarse. All rights were terminated when you sold the voucher, Jennifer answered coolly. After learning about this, I canceled all the procedures. A heavy silence filled the room. Thomas covered his face with both hands, his shoulders shaking. Martha stared blankly ahead, and April began to cry quietly. Jenny, Martha searched for words but seemed unable to find appropriate ones for an apology. This is the result of your choice, Jennifer said in a controlled voice. You belittled my love. And now, you're paying the price. Won't you help us with the fraud? Thomas asked hopefully. Jennifer sighed deeply. I've already reported it to the police. My security team continues to track the fraudster. My lawyer will handle the personal information damage. A glimmer of hope lit up Martha's face. But I want you to understand something, Jennifer continued. I will help resolve your financial problems, but this is the last time. Never again laugh at my affection. Jenny? Martha called out in a trembling voice. No, don't listen now. Jennifer stood up. I'm leaving for Miami now. When I return, I'll contact you through my lawyer about dealing with the fraud issue. As for other matters, I need time. She headed for the door. Lisa will explain the next steps. Goodbye. Just before the door closed, April's crying could be heard. Jennifer took a deep breath in the hallway outside the conference room. The burden in her chest felt a little lighter. Lisa approached with concern. Are you all right? Yes, Jennifer smiled slightly. Is everything ready for Miami? Yes, all set, Lisa nodded. And I've packed the Monroe Family Support Foundation documents in the car. Thank you. Jennifer returned to her office and gazed out the window. A cloudless blue sky stretched out. A new beginning. She briefly looked at the family photo on her desk before putting it in her bag. Though wounds remained, a new determination had sprouted in her heart. Snow swirled through the streets of New York. On a December day when Christmas illuminations decorated the city, Jennifer was gazing at the scenery outside from her office window. 6 months had passed since the establishment of the Monroe Family Support Foundation, and it had already helped many families. She had successfully transformed her personal pain into social contribution. "Ms. Monroe," Lisa quietly knocked on the door. "Here's the final report for this year." Jennifer nodded and reviewed the documents. The foundation had achieved results beyond expectations. Counseling services for people with complex family relationships, support groups for children with elderly parents, and housing assistance programs for families facing economic hardships. Everything was progressing smoothly. "Any contact from my parents?" she asked casually. Lisa shook her head slightly. "Same as last week. Just a card arrived." After the fraud issue was resolved, Jennifer's parents had moved to a modest senior apartment. Thomas started volunteering doing repairs at the local community center, and Martha began teaching knitting to neighborhood children. April had started attending night school, aiming to get an accounting qualification. They sent Jennifer cards and letters every week, but she hadn't replied yet. It would take time for her heart's wounds to heal. Jennifer opened her desk drawer and stared at the pile of cards from her family. Then, as if having made a decision, she stood up and picked up her coat. "I'm leaving early today," she told Lisa. "Merry Christmas." In the falling snow, Jennifer's car headed toward a quiet residential area in Queens. She held a small paper bag and stood in front of her parents' new apartment. Taking a deep breath, she knocked on the door. Surprise spread across Martha's face as she opened the door. Jenny, Thomas, and April peered from the living room with astonished faces. Jennifer smiled as she entered the room. The modest but warm room was decorated with a small Christmas tree. "Sorry for coming suddenly," she said quietly. "I brought a Christmas present." She took an envelope from the paper bag. "It's tickets for a day tour of Emerald Bay. I plan to go with you." Tears welled up in Martha's eyes. Thomas stood speechless, and April gasped softly. "Jenny," Martha choked on her words. "Let's start over," Jennifer said gently. "I'm not asking you to forget everything, but I hope we can build a new relationship." Thomas slowly approached and extended a trembling hand. "Thank you, daughter." April rushed to her sister and embraced her tightly. "I'm so sorry," she repeated through tears. A warm atmosphere flowed through the room. Though the wounds hadn't completely healed, hope had been lit for taking a new step. Outside the window, snow quietly adorned the Christmas night. The shadows of the 4 family members huddled together under one light,